Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. So for the next week, 10 days, I'm going to be spending some time with my family. We're going on our annual June vacation. So this will be our last new show until I come back on Monday, June 23rd. But we're going to have a lot of great content for you here while I'm gone. Today, however, is new because I needed to weigh in before I go on the status of the Diddy case and also the bombshell that happened this week in the Justin Baldoni-Blake Lively case. Diddy entered its fifth week of trial with testimony from his ex-girlfriend, Jane, who we have got to talk about. And on Monday, a federal district court judge in New York, dismissed Justin Baldoni's $400 million lawsuit against Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, the New York Times, and a PR person named Leslie Sloan. It was a resounding victory for Blake Lively. There's no two ways about it. However, that's the legal victory, and we're going to talk about what I mean. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Let me tell you about Financial Yield Solutions, Inc., known as FYSI. If you are handling your own books or you have a bookkeeper, you risk inaccuracies, missed deductions, and blind spots in cash flow. FYSI's team of seasoned accounting professionals, corporate and tax attorneys handle every journal entry, bank reconciliation, and month-end close with unmatched precision, delivering clear and timely financial reports that keep you in control. They weave advanced tax avoidance strategies into your bookkeeping so you capture every deduction before you file, and plug you into their network of industry leaders and referral partners for real-world growth opportunities. Set up your free consultation to learn how FYSI's experts will transform your books into a growth engine and accelerate your business to the next level. Act now to claim your free $5,000 business assessment, available only for a limited time. Go to fysi.com/Megyn, use the promo code Megyn, or just call 800-877-4000 today. Let me start with Baldoni. It was a shock. It was a shock to see Judge Louis Lyman of the U.S. District Court in Manhattan dismiss Justin's lawsuit. Just as a reminder of how this case got started, Blake Lively went to the California Human Rights Office, the California Civil Rights Department, and she filed a legal proceeding there to try to get Justin Baldoni in some trouble and trying to sound the alarm that he was some sort of a sexual predator. And very clearly, she then provided that document to the New York Times, and they ran with it. And using the allegations of that complaint, they painted him in a very irresponsible piece as a sexual predator, basically just taking the words of Blake Lively, allegations unproven from that document, and perhaps other statements as well, though exactly what else she provided remains unclear. It should have been exposed in the discovery process, where Baldoni will have the opportunity, or would have, to depose Blake Lively, to depose the New York Times, and figure out exactly what happened, how they got their hands on it, what additional statements were made by Blake Lively and or her team to the Times before they ran with that piece. That's now not going to happen because the Times has been dismissed as a defendant and with no leave to refile. So that was on December 20th. That we saw that complaint, and the Times then ran an article. By the 31st of December this past year, Blake Lively sued Justin Baldoni, and Justin Baldoni also filed suit against the New York Times, alleging that that piece defamed him. And then 2 weeks later, on January 16th, Justin Baldoni sued Blake Lively, sued Ryan Reynolds, and sued this PR agent, Leslie Sloan, and her company. What's happened this week is this federal district court judge reviewing what's called a 12B6 motion, a motion to dismiss the case without even getting to discovery, never mind trial, has granted that motion filed by Lively and the other defendants against Baldoni. His entire case against her has been thrown out, except for two minor claims for breach of the implied covenant and tortious interference with a contract. So implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing and the tortious interference with a contract, which are based on one smaller allegation made in the in the Justin Baldoni complaint, suggesting that I think this one is based on the fact that Ryan Reynolds allegedly went to WME, this large agency where Ari Emanuel is the owner and chief agent, and said, you need to dump Justin Baldoni as a client, and that he did it. And I believe Ari Emanuel has admitted this happened. I think he was on a podcast admitting that this happened. And the question is whether that can amount to the tortious interference with the contract between Justin Baldoni and WME. Even if they win on that, it's peanuts. Okay, that's not. I'm just being honest with you. As you know, I'm on. Having looked at this very closely, I believe Justin Baldoni is the truth teller, by and large, in this case, and that Blake Lively has either exaggerated or made up the overwhelming substance of her complaint. She wanted to save her own ass after suffering some bad publicity, and she's orchestrated this whole thing, which she thought would give her an I am woman, hear me roar moment. And now, thanks to this judge, she's sort of getting it. But that's what I think this whole thing is about, not about actual harassment by Justin Baldoni of Blake Lively. As we've seen, her complaint against him has fallen apart. I mean, just piece by piece, her scurrilous allegations of what he did to her have proven, in my clear view as an attorney, to be lies. I believe she lied. I believe she lied when she complained that he burst in on her while she was breastfeeding in her trailer. And then we've seen the correspondence between the two of them where she says, come on over, I'm breastfeeding. I mean, okay, it seems you only told us half the story, madam. She was forced to look at porn by these evil producers working with Justin. And they responded that, in fact, and they produced the pictures, what they wanted her to look at was a totally benign, not even PG-13. It's like a G-rated photograph of the producer and his wife in a bathtub after a bathtub birth. No nudity. It's like a beautiful shot of a new baby with the parents. It's like she's insane. This is not pornography by anybody's definition. Now, maybe when we get to trial, she's going to show us some triple X porn that they threatened to show her or did show her. I doubt it. She hasn't exactly held back in trying to rehabilitate her image. So those are just a couple of examples of how her claim in chief is falling apart. But in any event, Justin tried to fight back by saying she's now trying to smear me, in addition to like not being able to handle some bad PR around the launch of this movie that she brought upon herself, and blame it all on me. Now she's gone next level by trying to smear me by filing this complaint with the Civil Rights Division in California, by clearly leaking it to the New York Times, and trying to let the country know I'm some sort of a sexual predator, all of which is false. So he fought back. And he fought back not only by going, into a PR stance and unleashing Brian Friedman, his lawyer, and, as you know, mine, on the world, but filing a counterclaim against her, or claim against her. And that did not work out. So here's how bad it is, okay, before we get to where this is going. It's very bad. It's the dismissal is very, very bad for Justin Baldoni, at least as of right now, because California has this wacky rule. It's a new rule under a law Gavin Newsom signed in October 2023. It's California Civil Code 47.1. And this was signed by Gavin Newsom. It extends the California Civil Code's definition of a privileged communication in a defamation action to include communications made without malice about an individual's own experience of sexual assault, sexual harassment, workplace harassment, or discrimination, and cybersexual bullying. And what this means is that any defendant accused of defaming someone who then wins, who gets, for example, the case dismissed against her, she's been accused of defaming him in, let's say, a 12b6 motion, and what was at issue was her privileged communication about her alleged sexual harassment or workplace harassment, is entitled to recover attorney's fees and costs, as well as treble damages and punitive damages. Treble means triple. This is what Gavin Newsom did was said, if you get wrongfully sued for defamation, and the defamation you're accused of is you're a woman accusing somebody of sexually harassing you, and basically he fights back by saying this is defamation, and you as the woman, it could be the other way, but let's just go for, in this particular case, because that's the facts here, that it's the female accusing the male of sexual harassment, that you are not only entitled, if you win, if you prevail against this defamation charge, to your attorney's fees and costs, but we will triple those damages and potentially award you punitive damages to punish him and discourage others like him from bringing such defamation claims in California. Now, that's very bad. This case wasn't in California, but it was governed by California law. And this is brand new. This is one of, if not the first case in which this law has kicked in. And so I don't know how bad this is going to get, because, I mean, her lawyers might have expended $5 million. I've worked at large law firms where you easily expend millions of dollars in fees in fighting a 12b6 motion. Or in filing one for that matter. And so it's going to be millions. The attorney's fees are going to definitely be in the millions. The only question is how high. There would also be a question of reasonableness. This judge is not going to say, oh, you spent $50 million, Team Lively. Yeah, okay. Now he has to pay you $50 million and I'm going to triple them. That's not happening. But let's say she has $5 million in attorney's fees. It is not outside of the realm of possibility that he then triples those and awards her $15 million in damages and also potentially punitives. I don't think that's going to happen. It's all within the judge's discretion. And these claims are far from so specious or speculative or without merit that I think that a sane judge would say, I'm going to impose that kind of a punishment or pain on the defendant here. Well, technically in this particular claim, he's the plaintiff. He's the defamation plaintiff against her. I just don't think that this judge is going to do that to Justin, given how strong his defense is to her underlying claims and how his defamation claim against her really was well supported. It was. The reason they've been dismissed is because he recognized that there's a privilege in California to make the claim she's making of sexual harassment under California law if you do it in a legal proceeding. That's really why his defamation claim against her was dismissed. It's not because, he has no grounds to say he didn't harass her, that she's doing all of this to build up her own Me Too cred and trying to make herself into a, feminist hero. He does have the proof of all of that. It's that there's this privilege that covers, according to this judge, her complaint in the California Civil Rights Division or Department. And for that matter, he says it kind of extends to the New York Times. So a reporter, like somebody at the Times, like yours truly, who cites allegations in a complaint, a legal document, generally won't be subjected to defamation claims if you just repeat what somebody's alleging in a lawsuit. And I have to say, as somebody who's in the journalism business, I like that law. I like that general rule because I should be allowed to tell you what somebody's alleging in a court without endorsing it such that I get sued for defamation myself. But Brian Friedman's lawsuit on behalf of Justin Baldoni, to me, included far more than just allegations that were in that complaint Lively filed with the California Civil Rights Department. It was clear to me that what was in that New York Times article included allegations beyond that complaint. And to me, the judge just never squared that circle. He just kind of seemed to gloss over the fact that there had clearly been additional communications between Team Lively and the Times. That's how I read it. He's ignoring that and just saying, the privilege that protects a sexual harassment victim making allegations in a legal document gets her off the hook, and the reporter privilege gets the New York Times off the hook. He has to jump through a few more hoops to get Ryan Reynolds and the PR woman off the hook. But he's basically saying that as pleaded, the complaint against those two doesn't really amount to a cognizable legal claim. He's saying you want to sue you want to sue Ryan Reynolds for defamation. But what you're really alleging is that he went to WME and said, fire Justin Baldoni because he's a sexual predator. And you really haven't given me any facts in the complaint that would justify the standard that's needed in a defamation case when you're bringing that case as a public figure, which is the highest burden of proof under the law. Public figures have a very difficult time recovering defamation damages. And Justin Baldoni is the public figure here, trying to sue for defamation against Ryan Reynolds. And the court was saying, to recover from Ryan Reynolds for allegedly making that statement to WME, you've got to prove he said it with knowledge that it was false or with a reckless disregard for its potential falsity. And you haven't done that. And what the judge said, based on the facts alleged in this complaint, what I see is, at best, you've alleged he was told that by his wife. Now, I have a question about that because there are allegations about Ryan Reynolds having met with Baldoni and Taylor Swift and his wife in that infamous apartment meeting where there was an explosion, there was a fight over control of the film and some scenes. There was at least, I believe, one allegation that he went to set and would have been observing something with his own eyes. So I'm not sure all of his knowledge came through the wifey. But what the judge seemed to be saying was at least the vast majority of his knowledge would have come through his wife. And that means that inures to Ryan Reynolds' benefit. That the judge seems to be saying, in the worst case scenario, Ryan Reynolds was wrong, but not lying. Okay, so that's how he got off the hook. Though I guess the judge is leaving open the possibility that claim, at least that those allegations could potentially support a claim for tortious interference with contract if Baldoni refiles them with additional allegations. Again, that's a very minor victory for Team Baldoni. It's better than nothing. They still have a couple counterclaims, but trust me, this is nobody on Team Baldoni would be over there saying, yay, yay, in response to this ruling. So the claims by Baldoni are gone. They're really gone. And we'll see what the judge does. He could potentially say, I'm not going to rule on attorney's fees. Again, we're recording this on Tuesday. So I beg your forgiveness if something has changed between now and tomorrow, Wednesday, when you are hearing this. We're taping it the day I'm leaving for vacay, but I wanted to give you some fresh content on this. But it's possible the judge could issue a ruling now on fees and punitive damages. My God, I just don't see punitives coming. Or he could say, I'm not going to issue a ruling on this until the end of the trial, which would also be kind of, well, standard, but also annoying because you could get to trial. You could have Justin win now as the defendant on the claims against him and potentially have all of her claims thrown out by a jury. Like, we don't think you made your burden, Blake, and we find in favor of the defendant. And then Justin still, at that point, walking away having to pay her millions of dollars because his counterclaim was thrown out and there's this wacky law in California. I mean, it's just, this is not good, not a good ruling for Team Baldoni by any interpretation I can offer. I should point out to you, just full transparency, I've not spoken with Brian Friedman about this at this point. I'm sure I will, and I'll update you when I have, and I'm sure he'll come back on and speak to it directly. But just to be clear, I'm not like operating from inside knowledge here. This is just my own take as a lawyer and a reporter who's been covering the case. Here is, however, why I think Blake Lively's euphoria is a little premature, and I guess I should tell you what she's saying. She's thrilled. You won't be surprised to hear. She's absolutely thrilled. I'm going to show you a video as she arrived Monday night at the Tribeca Festival. It's the artist's dinner. This is Monday. Here she is. Let's watch it. She's all smiles. She's clearly in a great mood. I mean, she's acting like she won the case in chief against him. She didn't. And nor did the judge find that Justin's allegations are untrue. The judge just said, basically, you can't sue her for allegations she makes in a complaint she filed with the Civil Rights Department. Can't sue her for defamation for that. It's covered by a privilege. He didn't say what she said was true. He didn't say Justin's likely to lose this case at trial, like the case against him. But she's acting like the judge did, and it's a lie. She comes out, this is per BuzzFeed, on her Instagram story. She referenced the 19 organizations that wrote amicus briefs in support of her, Friends of the Court. She began, last week, I stood proudly alongside 19 organizations united in defending women's rights to speak up for their safety. Like so many others, I've felt the pain of a retaliatory lawsuit, including the manufactured shame that tries to break us. While the suit against me was defeated, so many don't have the resources to fight back. Okay, she's got $1 billion. Give me a break. I mean, like, it's absurd that any court would even consider making her pay Baldoni's legal fees, but he does not have $1 billion. Ryan Reynolds made that off of the sale of his liquor company, reportedly, never mind what they've earned as actors. I'm more resolved than ever to continue to stand for every woman's right to have a voice in protecting themselves, including their safety, their integrity, their dignity, and their story. Remember, she said that they made her perform the birth scene with like a slit covering up her lady parts. And then he brought on his best friend to play the doctor and let him linger down there below where he could check her out from a gynecological perspective. And then that person, that actor, came forward to say, this is such a lie. That's not true. She had on biker shorts the entire time. And by the way, I'm not just his buddy. I've been in all sorts of like Shakespearean productions and other big productions, and I'm insulted at their description of me just coming over as like an ogling buddy of Justin's. F off. Just yet another one of her obvious lies. But now she needs to speak out to protect one's integrity and dignity and one's story. Yeah, it's a story, all right. With love and gratitude for the many who stood by me, many of you I know, many of you I don't, but I will never stop appreciating or advocating for you. Okay. And then according to one insider per People magazine, she's been crying with relief. She's obviously relieved. They both are, someone tells People. She feels vindicated. Everyone is happy on the legal team. Well, I really think her days of feeling relieved and super happy about this case are numbered. And to be honest, I think they're not as joyful as she's portraying and her PR people are portraying in the media right now. And here's what I really want to say. So what's happened now, and as a practical matter, what's going to happen going forward is Justin's now the defendant and Blake is now the plaintiff. And that's a very simple formula. And I've tried cases like that myself, many of them in the past, both worked on as a litigator and actually seen through to trial. And it's a very simple case now. He said, she said. That's what it is. No more cross claims, really. No more New York Times. No more press people. It's her versus him. And on the merits of that case, I believe she will lose in this court of law. She's going to get Amber Hearded. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be brutal. She's going to get cross-examined by Brian Friedman, and it's not going to be pretty. Mark my words. It's not going to be pretty when she gets crossed. I don't believe either side is in the mood to settle. It's possible because don't forget, she lost a major piece of her complaint too earlier last week when her claims for emotional distress had to be thrown out. Well, she threw them out because Team Baldoni said, okay, give us access to your psychiatrist records. Let us see your mental health records. You're claiming we have to pay you all these damages for the severe mental distress that we inflicted on you. Great. Let's see what those damages look like. And that's a totally appropriate request by them to say, you're asking us to pay for all your medical visits? Let me see your medical visits. Now I have to see whether you complained about me or you were complaining about life as a Hollywood star and Ryan doesn't pay enough attention to me. And she immediately dropped those counts saying, never mind. And she asked if she could drop them without prejudice so she could hold them over Justin's head from now to the point of trial. And the court said, we're not doing that. They're dropped. If they're dropped, they're dropped. And if they're not dropped, then fork over your records. So she also suffered a loss in this case in the past 2 weeks. So they both suffered a loss. His is bigger than hers, no question. I'm not trying to spin you. But now, if they're going to settle, would be the time for them to say, okay, Blake can say, I will waive my right to damages, or more than likely she'll say, you do have to pay my attorney's fees, but we're going to pay those, to like some charity. It'll be some Me Too, like a Time's Up type thing to try to make her look good. And Justin Baldoni could potentially do that and make this thing go away while he's not looking like he's paying for sexual harassment. That could be a potential outcome. But what I believe as of now anyway is that both sides are so dug in, they are likely to barrel forward to trial. And Brian Friedman wants to get Blake Lively under deposition and Ryan Reynolds under deposition and force them to respond to some of the very, very strong evidence he has that they're liars, that at least she's a liar and he's been misled deeply by his troubled wife. So I think that's probably where I'd put my bet, that that's what's likely to happen. And I believe when this goes to trial, she'll lose. But all of that also is not the point that I want to make. And here is the point, and then I will move on. The point is she's already lost this case. This whole case was about PR. This case began, and I believe including her complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, it began because when they launched this movie, It Ends With Us, which is about domestic abuse, she suffered a round of unflattering press. She suffered that round of press, I believe, thanks to her own terrible personality and bad behavior and bullying tactics, both against reporters and against Justin Baldoni and others on that set, which started to leak and turned the public on her. She was inappropriate in promoting the movie, which is about, battery of women. And she kept smiling and laughing and pimping her hair company and her weird flowers. And her affect was too light. And she seemed off, like she didn't understand what actual victims of abuse go through. She unfollowed Justin on all of his social accounts before the premiere. She relegated him to a basement on the premiere. She was clearly trying to gin up questions about what had happened between the two of them. And then, boom, she dropped the hammer a couple months later with this complaint, which, mysteriously, miraculously wound up in the New York Times. This was, in my opinion, Blake Lively trying to redeem herself in the public eye because she couldn't stand the round of bad publicity she suffered that she brought upon herself. We've talked about this many times recently on this show. George Clooney couldn't stand the fact that I said he's not a journalist, so he had to launch into some diatribe about how I'm not and going off on me. Okay, all right. Why don't you dye your hair another shade of black, George? Also, you should consider what's happening with those enormous bags under your eyes. Okay, I'm just saying. That's probably why you haven't been cast in anything other than a play for a while. So that's George. But there's a lot of people who just aren't used to any sort of negative publicity about themselves. And if they get one word of it, they have to lash out because it's so unusual. They're surrounded by all these yes men. I mean, honestly, I feel like the only person who gets like negative press like that, who's a huge star and doesn't fight back against it, is like a Tom Cruise, because he's used to taking all these hits for Scientology and he's such a big star. He's just kind of like, whatever. But these other stars cannot take negative publicity about themselves. And same for Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, especially her. That's why she did this, I'm convinced. So she thought she was going to be able to bully him, that this was 2018 again, and that he would cower on the receiving end of these Me Too allegations she leaked that she had made on set, where she was failing and struggling. And I mean, she's terrible in the movie. If you've watched it, a lot of people have commented on it. And that she would emerge, like she called herself in that text message she sent to Justin, as Khaleesi from Game of Thrones, that she would be the mother of dragons, this fierce warrior, that Taylor and Ryan were her dragons who were going to kill for her anybody who got in her way or tried to smear her reputation. And while she wrote that to Justin in a friendlier moment, although there was clearly a veiled threat in there for him too, that's really how she thinks about herself. And she wanted to have that Me Too moment. I mean, this is the same thing with Gretchen Carlson. Gretchen Carlson sees herself as like the heroine of the Me Too movement. It's pathetic. Look what's happened to her. She's gone completely crazy, hard left. She's as bitter as they come on the left. She's one step away from the enormous blue glasses and blue bracelet and shaving her head. It hasn't really worked out well for her. And this hasn't worked out well for Blake Lively because he did not cower. He did not hide in the basement. He did not roll over. He hired Brian Friedman, who fought back against Blake Lively. And she looks like a craven liar. Her reputation is in tatters. I'm not sure if she realizes that because she only insists on hanging out with fellow leftists at places like the Time 100, where I saw her and I told you about that. She's Amber Hearded herself. Good luck getting your next big Hollywood blockbuster role. You guys are going to be dining off of Ryan Reynolds' money from here to eternity. And she knows it. And by the way, it's not about money for her. She wants to be a star. She wants to be cast. Do you think it's tough to find a lot of beautiful blonde Hollywood actresses who really would like to star in a film who don't have a reputation of being a complete diva who's going to Me Too the producer, director, creators of the film? It's really not. They're a dime a dozen. Good luck to her. What I would recommend for her is that she have her husband produce and cast all future movies, and then she might actually have a career ahead of her. She's already ruined her own career. Justin Baldoni's fight was always a PR one. She was trying to drag him to improve her own standing. He fought back, and he's done what he needed to do already. He's done it. People know. No one will ever look at her the same. No one will ever look at her allegations except the most partisan, rabid leftists who believe every Me Too allegations and say, oh, he did it. It's just not going to happen. They've been too effective on team defense of dismantling her allegations and fighting back. I mean, you could make the argument that even this dismissal is in some PR ways good for him because it just draws more attention once again to how flimsy her case is and how absurd this is. And as she tries to act like this just embattled, put upon victim who emerged with this great legal victory, it's only going to make people like me and probably a lot of you get their backs up again about her and how ridiculous she is and how she's tormenting him. And you can treble that if she actually does get a big damage award against him, and God forbid it gets trebled or she gets punitives too. So she's not in a good position. She doesn't give a shit about this money. As I say, she's married to somebody with more money than God. She cares about her reputation and her ability to get cast in future films. And I'm sure she'd love for Justin Baldoni to never be able to make a movie again. She's failed at both goals. Both goals. So it's good news, bad news for both parties. Those damages could really hurt Justin. I don't think he has a lot of money or any. So we'll see. That's got a big question mark over it. And his claims obviously are not going forward. But she has lost this battle, which I believe was always about PR. And this didn't help that. It did not help that. With her doubters, the only way she can redeem herself with all the people who were fans of hers but now aren't is if she has some sort of spike the ball moment every day when this thing goes to trial. And she's not going to, people. The biggest question mark that she has that she could somehow pull through, and we'll see, is these alleged other women she finally got around to referring to in her amended complaint, saying she's not going to be the only one to accuse him of creating a hostile work environment or sexual harassment on the set. And we'll see. He's denying all of that too, and her word is not good. But that's the only sliver I have open for her at trial. If she has a parade of women come on with very compelling allegations, okay, now you got my attention again. I doubt it for very good reasons. I doubt it. So that's Baldoni. I do want to spend some time on Diddy. I can't say enough negative things about this man. I'm not sure he's human. I like in the same way you look at a psychopath that like Dahmer who kills people and eats them. That's how I am now looking at Sean Combs. There's something deeply wrong with him. There's a depravity to this man that we did not know about. And honestly, I'm going to forgive even some of these massive Hollywood celebrities who went to his so-called white parties because it's so much worse than really I'm sure even they knew. But his intimate team around him knew, and they do not get forgiven. Unfortunately for the prosecution, they are also amongst the chief witnesses in this trial. You know, there's the thing in the law where you say, like, the devil doesn't hang around with angels. And so when you're going after the devil, who can put him behind bars? The devil's helpers. And they're not all that likable either. So he's had, you know, this cast of characters around him that's helped him, that's looked the other way as all these women come into his life and get abused, get hooked on drugs, get farmed out to male escorts like they're barnyard animals, put out for stud. It is disgusting what he did to these women, the women in his life. He doesn't understand what love is. It's weird because all the people around him are so enamored with him and they come back to him over and over. And to this day, they talk about how complicated it was. I don't think that's his loving side that they're remembering and like the good times. It's the fact that they're star effers, not all of them, but many of them. And they're intoxicated by his money and his celebrity. Most of these people come from nothing and were very ripe targets for his power and his money, his ability to pay their rent and so on. So they were easy targets and he knew it. He was dazzling the security force at the LA Intercontinental Hotel. These guys are kind of, you know, law enforcement adjacent. Even they were like, yeah, we'll take the money to hide that tape of you beating her, fork it over. Even those guys could be bought. You know, he did not look at the law as a threat. He looked at the law as something he could buy and overcome. And time again, he was proven right. And even the people he most harmed kept forgiving him and going back to him for a job or rent or to be in a relationship with him, even though, again, they were being treated like barnyard animals. And these women knew it. They did not enjoy it. They did not want it. To a woman, you can see. I'm aware of texts from like Cassie Ventura early in the relationship saying, yeah, I can't wait to freak off. I enjoy the freak offs. Keep reading, people. Keep reading. Great. Let's do her text messages. Talk to me when you get to the ones that say, I love the freak offs when we both want them. And how about, you know, if you like evidence, because I like evidence too, how about her running out of the freak off for her life and getting beaten to a pulp and dragged back into the freak off? Because that's been the testimony. How about that? Can we agree that maybe the consent that was there initially had waned? Now we've spent this week listening to Jane, who followed on the heels of Mia, both pseudonyms. Mia was an employee. Jane was another girlfriend. Mia, it's just like serial sexual abuse, serial physical abuse through all of these witnesses. Mia testified about him coming into her room in his home where she was required to keep the door unlocked. All the male employees, the security guards could have locks on their doors, but she couldn't, and that he would come in and abuse her. She testified she didn't want it. Can we know? I don't know. He was such an, I don't know what I want to say. I don't want to say aphrodisiac because that's something that actually turns you on, but he was such a god in the eyes of all these staffers. Can we really believe she didn't want him when he walked in her rooms? I don't know. But I've heard enough from Cassie Ventura and from Jane to know that this guy was happy to force these women into a life of these so-called freak-offs or debauchery or hotel nights or whatever you want to call it, and to beat them and to understand that they didn't want to be there, but to hold the threat of violence, the threat of exposure, the threat of their careers, the threat of rent over their heads to try to force them into it. That I think the government's got him. I think they have got him. I think they've got him on every count. Some people are thinking they don't have him on the RICO count where you have to prove he's sort of a mob boss overseeing multiple crimes. Each individual, you only need 2 underlying crimes for RICO. They've got him. Just the video from the Intercontinental alone is kidnapping and battery. And now you've had testimony from the guy who took his bribe. The guy, the security officer there who took his $100,000. He said, you know what, Diddy, if you want me to destroy the tape, you're going to have to take it up with my boss, or you're going to have to get a subpoena to get control of that tape. And instead, Diddy said, how about 100,000? And that guy's boss said, sure. That guy's boss said, here, give me 50. Loser, absolute cretin, took 50 grand. And then the guy who testified, he'd been given immunity, took half of the remaining 50 and gave the other half to another guard who'd been on duty. The only one who didn't take the bribe was the first guy who was the first witness in this case, who testified that not only did he not take the money, and he'd been shown $100,000 in cash by Diddy's security guard that was in a bag. He said no, but he took out his cell phone and videotaped the security guard tape showing the beating before he left. It was a Friday for the weekend. He said he wanted to show it to his wife, and I'm sure the guy knew there was a very good chance this thing would be disappeared by the time he got back on Monday, and it was. He's the one who gave it, we believe, to CNN. And the reason that we've seen it, and the reason the prosecution opened its case with it, that video. That's like the only man of honor who wouldn't take the money and videotaped the videotape. Person after person has taken the stand and talked about watching Diddy beat these various girlfriends. I mean, relentlessly beat. There's no amount of beat that's okay. But just like the inhumanity of how he beat them, splitting Cassie's lip, throwing a frying pan at her allegedly. We saw what he did to her on tape. Each woman reporting how she had to go down. She went down to try to avoid, protect her internal organs and prevent too much injury, and how he would kick them in the stomach while down. The thing about Jane, I do want to get into what happened with Jane because it was just stunning and heartbreaking and disgusting and tracks what Cassie Ventura told us perfectly. What he did to Cassie Ventura from the day he got together with her back in 2000, well, it was earlier than 2008, but straight through to 2018. She got together with him, I think, around 2006. But from the beginning, this is Cassie, around 2006 to 2018, he was making her do these freak-offs with male escorts in hotel rooms. And as soon as that was over, he was doing it with others. I was like, Cassie now sees, all the women see. You were part of an assembly line of women he used like a barnyard animal. Again, that's no comment on the women. It's a comment on how he valued them. That's how he saw them. Jane comes out, and she took over basically as Combs' girlfriend, I think shortly after he and Cassie broke up. And she was his on-again, off-again girlfriend straight through to when he got arrested in 2024. And this is the saddest story. I got to tell you, spend time with your children. You don't have to tell them everything they do is wonderful. Every 2 marks on an art paper is a Picasso. But you do have to build up your child's sense of self and self-confidence and understanding that they belong in this world to a family, ideally, with family dinners and time invested by a parent. And if, God forbid, the child loses a father figure, either from the beginning or some way along the way, make sure they have a strong male role model so they don't need to be affirmed by random men who can't fucking stand them or respect them, like Sean Diddy Combs. I just feel like there's a couple stories here. There's a story about the depravity of this man. I don't know how that happened. Had to be more than wealth and fame, because a lot of people get wealthy and famous and don't do this. But it's also the story of these women and how sad they were, how unfilled they were, how unsated as humans they were on a confidence and brain level, that they would time and time again allow him to force them into these freak-offs, and then of course go back to him over and over in the beatings. It's a tale that's related to domestic violence. It is domestic violence, but it's so hard for women who find themselves in abusive relationships. And if you can understand why a woman allows herself to get beaten more than once, you can understand why a woman allows herself to be forced back into these so-called freak-offs more than once. It's all part of a pattern of abuse. If this had been once or twice and you had a text message saying, I want it, or like in Jane's case, she said, or I think it was either Jane or Mia, forgive me, I blend them sometimes, saying in the beginning, it was Jane, saying, I wanted it in the beginning because it seemed taboo. Then he might have a defense that there was consent. I wasn't forcing it, and I had no reason to believe that there was no consent. It's so far beyond that, people. It's just so far beyond that. And let me get into just a couple of the details of Jane. She testified about a hotel night. She didn't call it freak-offs. They called it either hotel nights or debauchery, in which she wanted the male partner, the escort, to wear a condom. And Combs did not want her to wear, he did not want the guy to wear the condom. The prosecution played the recording, because there was a recording audio from this freak-off or this hotel night. Played the part of the recording for the court. It was roughly 8 minutes and 25 seconds. The audio revealed a tape of Jane, Combs, and a male sex worker, Don. She requested Don use a condom. Combs interjected, questioned what they are doing. Jane said Don did not use protection during the sexual encounter with her. Jane was asked why she needed Combs' permission to have the man wear a condom. Jane seemed to get emotional and said she was, quote, still trying to process that. She said she didn't insist on the man wearing a condom because Combs would be unhappy. She said that after she would sexually engage with the male sex worker, Combs would have sex with her immediately. She would not clean up the sex worker's bodily fluids. Combs and she would play with the bodily fluids, forgive me. Then she would shower and repeat the process. Jane said that most hotel nights lasted longer than 24 hours. This all tracks perfectly with what we heard from Cassie. With no sleep, testifying that Combs would give her ecstasy to stay awake and continue performing. The longest hotel night, according to Jane's testimony, lasted more than 3 days with no sleep. Same. Cassie Ventura said same. It's the racehorse has a fractured leg and should not be put out on the track or it could die. And the trainer shoots it up with all sorts of drug cocktails to make it run. Run. I want my prize money. That's how this feels. These women are trying to do what this man, who feels more like their owner than their love, their partner, wants them to do, and they keep falling. They don't want it. They get disgusted. They try to leave. In Jane's case, she got physically ill, and he sends them back out there, bum leg or not. Run. Do it. He's a disgusting, filthy pig. That's my opinion. I'm horrified by this man. I can't wait to watch him rot behind bars forever. And if, God forbid, this guy gets acquitted, I can't wait to watch the shunning. And I can't wait to personally shun and humiliate anybody who doesn't shun him because they haven't been paying attention. They haven't been listening to the testimony, if that's what happens. Jane cried and was emotional as she detailed a different hotel night in 2023 in Miami, where she had sex with 3 other men at Combs' insistence on her birthday. She testified she flew to Miami with Combs, who told her they'd spend quality time together. If you've seen the testimony of Jane, she kept begging him to just be her boyfriend, to just love her. She just wanted quality time with him. She saw the paper or through text or whatever that he was with other women, like in what appeared to be like an actual date. And she wanted that. And he kept luring her in, saying, okay, yes, let's do that. Let's get together. Let's go out in Miami, only to surprise her with another night of debauchery. She flew to Miami with Combs, who told her they would spend quality time together, only to then bring up plans for a hotel night during their nice romantic dinner. On the stand, Jane grew very emotional while discussing the birthday. She heaved more than once as she cried. She is overwhelmed with these memories. And prosecutor Maureen Comey asked her repeatedly if she needed a break. Each time, Jane said no. But that was extremely emotional testimony. She said she felt obligated to perform these acts for Combs. She said he began paying her $10,000 per month in rent in what she described as a love contract during their 3-year relationship. She said she felt like she had to perform the sex acts and that she expressed her displeasure many times. Quote, I don't want to be used and locked in a room to perform and fulfill your fantasies, she texted him. And the jury saw this text. I don't want to play this role in your life anymore. It's dark, sleazy. It makes me feel disgusted with myself. I feel it's the only reason you have me around and why you pay for the house. I don't want to feel obligated to perform these nights with you in fear of losing the roof over my head. At one point, he texted her asking if he could come over, adding, that's my house too. At another, he texted her the same message 6 consecutive times. Are you going to let me in our house? Prosecution's alleging that paying rent was a form of financial coercion employed by Combs. In other words, he gets her, he says, oh, I'll pay for your rent. Move on in. You're going to love it. I'll take care of you. Then she moves in. And then when she doesn't perform as he insists, he threatens to remove the roof from over her head. And I know what you're thinking. She could have walked out. She could have walked out. It's the same thing as a domestic violence victim, people, which she also was. He was also beating her, she alleges. It's just so much more complicated than that. It is not like she's a gold digger. You have to look at the overall relationship and the number of abusive incidents between them and the threats, again, that were allegedly made by him to expose this behavior that he had on tape. That's why the prosecution is alleging it's all part of a RICO scam, like a criminal enterprise where he was using coercion to force the women to continue doing it. In response to her concerns, she says Combs invited her to New York and said that it would be a proper trip. He keeps doing this, the one in Miami, the one in New York. It'll be a proper trip. But shortly after her arrival, he arranged another hotel night at Trump International Hotel. He gave her ecstasy and invited a cowboy wearing heels to come over. This is one of those escort services. That Cassie testified that it was like cowboys for angels. These guys would show up like this to join them and have sex with her while he watched. That was his thing. After the New York trip was that Miami trip that we were just getting into, and we'll get into the details of that in a second. And Jane texted that text I read you. I don't want to do this anymore. Here's another text. I don't feel like performing loveless, cold sex. She texted him in October 2023. I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal. I need a break. He wrote back saying he just wanted to spend the day with her. You're going to spend the day, what, love bombing me, she said, so you can get what you want? It's not genuine. I've hit a mental and spiritual wall. Nonetheless, he got her down to Miami, and once again, another night of debauchery. Every time she trusted him that they might have just like a dinner, like a date, like go to a movie, he said, oh, that's what it'll be. And then every single time he was like, now we're having an escort come. And if she didn't, she was going to lose everything. No more roof over your head. This is obviously not a strong woman. I'm sorry, I don't mean that insulting. But Jane is obviously extremely vulnerable. And he loved exploiting her. He loved making her suffer. I feel like this is part of it. You know how Harvey Weinstein couldn't get off unless he was doing something dirty? I feel like Diddy couldn't get off unless the woman wasn't there under a bit of protest that he knew, and he was forcing this stranger on her. Like, I definitely think this is part of his fetish. Jane told the court after exchanging a series of messages with Combs, she did agree to meet him. And after this one, this is October 2023, they met at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Combs said that this would be the last one. We're going to have a sobriety party. We're going to get off drugs and we're going to stop doing this. And at that freak off, she did it sober. Combs took ecstasy and cocaine and invited 3 men to have sex with Jane. She said after having sex with the first 2, she threw up. This is how horrified she was at what she was being forced to do. But Combs encouraged her to continue. Jane, she testified, felt absolutely terrible. I was just disgusted, she said. I was repulsed. She said she subsequently developed a urinary tract infection and a yeast infection. She texted Combs, you placed and paid all of these harmful men on me and risked my health. She told him the relationship was never love. And, quote, I regret everything and all this dark, toxic shit that entered my life. She testified about how that night in that hotel room, she was forced to, she had sex with the 2 escorts. That's when she got sick and went back into the bathroom and said, I can't do this anymore. And he said, oh, good, you threw up. Now you'll feel better. Now get back out there. And she went back out there and there was a 3rd escort that she had sex with. This is an animal. He's an animal. He tried to make her into a barnyard animal. There's something deeply wrong with this man. I don't give a shit about his fucking gray sweater and his little collar and his Bible. How dare he bring the Bible in there? How dare he? pretend to understand the Bible or God or goodness. He's the living opposite. He's a devil in a gray sweater. This stuff is so beyond disgusting. I need to know how. I need to know what happened to him, that he behaved like this, that he became like this with people he was supposed to love, people he was supposed to take care of. It's just, Jane says Combs threatened to release her sex tapes to her child's father. She testified at one point after Cassie Ventura's lawsuit became public, and she says she almost fainted. She said, I think I did faint. It was a nightmare. I can't believe I'm reading my own story. She texted Combs immediately. I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma. The sick part is you knew this was coming and you gaslit me. You made me feel crazy about the sex trauma I was developing, knowing you've been here before. It's also clear that this was sexual exploitation that you framed as love for your sick fetishes. Jane's not dumb. The court then heard audio of a conversation Jane had with Combs a few days later in which Combs tells Jane he needs her friendship and that they need to get through this together. I need you to be there for me, he said. You know you don't get to worry about anything else. Jane testified that she took that to mean he would continue to pay for her rent if she cooperated with him. She says she testified at one point about Ventura's lawsuit becoming public and that Combs told her to, quote, charge me for your resentment over the relationship. I just need you to get over this, she recalled Combs telling her. I don't want any loose ends. After Jane proposed he pay her $150,000, which is a pittance. That is a pittance. Cassie testified she settled that case for $20 million. Combs accused her of being an opportunist, threatened to release video recordings of her having sex with other men during hotel nights to the father of her child. Jane said that she reported the threats to KK, Christina Coran, Combs' chief of staff, and asked Coran to intervene. According to Jane, KK assured her that nothing would happen and that she and Combs just needed to give each other space. Again, his enterprise around her, around him, KK and others, are part of the alleged enterprise engaging in the criminal conspiracy. She also testified, and I'll wrap it up after this. She testified that he beat her. She admits that in this beating, she hit him back. Let's not kid ourselves, people. He was twice her size. She's a small little thing. She told the court that in 2024, this is after. It's after the three men in the hotel and her vomiting and him saying, that's good, you'll be ready to go back out there. It's after don't wear the condom. It's after I feel like a barnyard animal. It's just, if you understand women who go back to men who abuse them, then you can understand Jane's decisions better too. She told the court she missed him, 2024, and that they eventually got back together. June 18th, 2024, he came to her house in Los Angeles after he got back from a family trip to Utah. She doesn't get to go on the family trips. Neither did Cassie, by the way. This is one of Cassie's complaints. She was also the side piece animal kept in a pen, asked to perform. She was never the main squeeze, and she saw him, like Jane did, out with other women who were, presentable, okay to be seen with in public. The others occasionally did, but they knew that they weren't really being presented as the girlfriend. And they got into an argument that escalated into physical violence. Said she was upset by a young woman that she thought he was with on that trip and called him a pedophile. Said she pushed his head into a marble counter and started throwing candles around the house and locked herself in a bathroom. Combs kicked the bathroom door off of its hinges, she said, so she ran into a closet and then tried to leave. Jane said Combs caught her at the front door, kicked her in the thigh, and put her in a chokehold. She said she was able to squirm out of it and ran outside. Testified she returned to the house thinking Combs had left, but he followed her inside. This time she said she hid in the guest bedroom and locked the door, which Combs also kicked in. He was after her, man, and he meant business. Then ran onto the patio. Think of him this angry. Think of what you saw in that videotape. How would you like that man running after you as a 100-pound woman? Where they punched each other. Jane said she went into a ball on the ground in her backyard as Combs kicked and punched her. She said he grabbed her by the hair and dragged her back into the house. Where have we seen that before? Does that sound like a pattern to you? Shortly after the fight, Combs invited a male entertainer over because he said, we're not going to end the night like this. This is like the lowest moment I've had in this whole trial. This is after the 3 escorts. This is after you threw up so you can do more. This is after all the other things. She gets back with him. She gets beaten by him. She runs. She keeps locking doors down that he busts down. He kicks and punches and beats the shit out of her. And then he says, we're having a hotel night. A male escort is coming over. Jane said he told her to put on makeup and put her hair to the side to cover her injuries and insisted she take an ecstasy pill before having sex with the male escort while Combs watched. She told the court Combs had his assistant and a security guard later deliver $10,000 to $12,000 in cash for damage to the home, which included 4 broken doors, and to pay the male escort who did come and have a hotel night. Photos of the damaged doors were shown in court. I can't. I guess I need to tell you at this point, he denies all these allegations. He's entitled to the presumption of innocence. Some of the testimony of some witnesses has fallen apart, like the one woman who acted as his chief of staff for a period of time, Bangolin, the one who said he dangled her over the balcony. He's produced receipts and cross-examination that show her alleged pictures of injuries are from a time when he was out of the country. She fell apart on the stand. It was a major victory for Diddy. So we cannot take everybody's word as gospel, and he has not yet begun presenting his defense. What we know that helps him, we know from his cross-examinations of these witnesses. But I'm sorry, you're never going to convince me these women are making this shit up. His defense, by the way, with Cassie and with Jane, appears to be like at some times you consented and you took the money and you liked having an apartment, or in Cassie's case, you liked having the trappings of wealth and somebody to produce your records. It does not appear to be they did not do this stuff, that he's not an inhumane, callous asshole. I just it's overwhelming. I guess I should have included like a warning before we did this show for people who've experienced sexual violence or domestic violence, because I know this stuff actually can be triggering. I am thankfully not a victim of such violence, but I've interviewed and known so many that I know this actually can be triggering. So my apologies for not putting that up front. I assume you kind of know it when we're going to get into the Diddy case, but that's where we are. The government's proving its case. This guy's going to be convicted. I will be stunned if he does not get convicted. And he's likely going to jail for the rest of his natural life, which is where he belongs. He should not be able to prowl the world seeking the ruination of souls, if you know the reference. Okay. Sorry to end on such a dark note, but I guess the positive on all of this is he's caught. He is on trial right now because we have a justice system that recognizes these are crimes. You're actually not allowed to coerce women into sexual acts with prostitutes and make them effective prostitutes against their will over and over and over again by threatening to tell their baby daddy or their parents or the world that they're the sluts you've turned them into. You're not allowed to do that. It actually is a crime. It counts as sex trafficking by force, which is the second and one of the most serious crimes he's charged with. So I don't care that it's Maureen Comey. I don't care. The prosecution's right. This case was proper. That's my opinion. And we'll wait to see what his defense is. There actually is serious talk about him possibly taking the stand, which I believe would be a mistake. The reason some think it wouldn't be is because clearly this man has the devil's ability to charm, or this wouldn't have gone on for so long. Somebody on his staff would have done something, clearly, right? Like somebody would have said, gee, I think you firebombed somebody's car. We should probably call the cops. Or somebody would have said, I'm watching you beat woman after woman. A lot of the staff saw that and did nothing. And clearly he's got some mystical ability And again, I believe it's related to his enormous money, wallet, and fame, enormous fame, and people falling under his spell, like a cult master almost. So maybe they're banking on that same, is it charisma? Is it like the ability to sound self-deprecating, notwithstanding the fact that you're a huge star? He can't buy the jury. He can't offer them a roof over their heads. He can't threaten them. So I'm not sure you can bank on those abilities if he were to take the stand. So I do feel heartened that the prosecution was brought. You know, in a way, it's like the Epstein trial that we never got. This gross, disgusting, super rich, super connected guy who just over and over exploited vulnerable women. And we never got to see this with Jeffrey Epstein, but we're getting to see it with Sean Diddy Combs, and he deserves every freaking minute of it. My only regret is that these women aren't on camera, because it would be even more powerful for us to see their testimonials. But I appreciate it for their sakes that it's not. Federal court doesn't allow cameras, and I'm sure these women were very happy that it wasn't televised, for obvious reasons. Just, I'd like to have the tape out there. It's just very powerful to see the tape. And America, like his defenders, should be forced to see the tapes and defend them. This is not the Amber Heard trial. The Blake Lively trial is the Amber Heard trial, in my opinion. This is not. This is real. He's a deeply problematic man, and I hope justice prevails. Okay, on that, I'm going on vacation. We've got some good content queued up for you while we're gone. We'll miss you, but this is our family vacation where the kids and we go someplace great, and I'll tell you the details when we get back. I never like to really broadcast it in advance because then you're kind of inviting the paparazzi to show up. It happened to us in Italy. I don't want it to happen here. So anyway, more details when we get back. I won't subject you to a bunch of vacation details and photos, but I'll just fill in a couple of the blanks. And I really hope you guys have a great 10 days. Please continue listening and downloading. That'll help our show, and I appreciate that. And AM Update, same. And we will reconnect on Monday, June 23rd, unless something big breaks between now and then, where I will be bringing my broadcasting technology with me. So you may actually hear from me between now and then. So do continue downloading the show. Have a great week or so, and we'll see you when I get back. If you are looking for a Father's Day gift that he will absolutely love, I have something for you. Something special? Check. Something unique? Check. Something he'll actually use and love? Check, check. It's salt. Yes, but wait. It's hot salt from Firecracker Farm. Hot salt is a craft spice, and its savory heat is made by a family company right on their farm. They infuse all-natural coarse sea salt with the perfect amount of hot pepper in handcrafted blends you can't get anywhere else. Housed in sleek stainless steel push grinders, they feel great in your hand, and they're surprisingly fun to use. Portable, shareable, and totally unique, it's delicious and beautifully presented and an awesome gift for dad. But they only make it in small batches, so if you want it in time for Father's Day, get moving before they sell out. Go to firecracker.farm right now and use the code MK at checkout for a special discount. Yes, that's firecracker.farm. Code MK. Get some hot salt before it's all gone. You'll thank me. Tax Network USA is ready to proudly celebrate our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th. If you are dealing with back taxes or you missed the April 15th tax deadline, don't wait, because the IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just for not filing. That's on top of what you already owe. It's stressful, but there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around. It's not too late for you. Whether you are self-employed, run a business, or your books are just a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise bank levies. Call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. That's 10% off all services through July 4th as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA.